The Chinese Civil War: Causes, Consequences, and the Future of Taiwan. The Chinese Civil War was a conflict between the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, and the Kuomintang, KMT, that lasted from 1927 to 1950. The first part of the Chinese Civil War began in 1927 and lasted until 1937. It was a period of intense political and military struggle between the two sides, with the CCP ultimately emerging victorious. The Chinese Civil War began in 1927 when the KMT, led by Chiang Kai-shek, launched a campaign to suppress the CCP. The KMT had been in power since 1912, and Chiang was determined to maintain his control over the country. The CCP, led by Mao Zedong, had been gaining strength since its founding in 1921 and was determined to overthrow the KMT and establish a communist government. The first part of the Chinese Civil War was marked by a series of military campaigns and political maneuvers by both sides. The KMT launched a series of campaigns to suppress the CCP, including the White Terror, which saw thousands of suspected communists arrested and executed. The CCP responded by launching a series of guerrilla campaigns in the countryside, which were successful in gaining support from the peasantry. In 1934, the CCP launched the Long March, a 6,000-mile retreat from the KMT forces. The Long March was a major turning point in the Chinese Civil War, as it allowed the CCP to regroup and re-establish itself in the northern part of the country. The CCP also gained international recognition during this period, as the Soviet Union and other communist countries provided support and assistance. The KMT continued to launch campaigns against the CCP, but the CCP was able to hold its ground and eventually gain the upper hand. In 1937, the KMT launched a full-scale invasion of the CCP-controlled areas, but the CCP was able to repel the attack and eventually gain control of the entire country. The first part of the Chinese Civil War was a period of intense struggle between the two sides, with the CCP ultimately emerging victorious. The CCP was able to gain the support of the peasantry and established a strong base of support in the countryside. The Long March was a major turning point in the war, as it allowed the CCP to regroup and reestablish itself in the northern part of the country. The CCP also gained international recognition during this period, as the Soviet Union and other communist countries provided support and assistance. The middle part of the war, which lasted from 1945 to 1949, was a crucial period in the conflict. During this time, the CCP and KMT fought for control of China, with the CCP ultimately emerging victorious. In 1945, the war returned after a brief hiatus due to the Japanese surrender. The KMT, led by Chiang Kai-shek, had the advantage of superior numbers and better equipment. However, the CCP, led by Mao Zedong, had the advantage of a strong base of support among the Chinese people. The CCP also had the support of the Soviet Union, which provided them with military aid. The CCP launched a series of offensives against the KMT in 1945 and 1946. These offensives were successful, and the CCP was able to gain control of much of northern and central China. The KMT was forced to retreat to the south, where they established a new government in Nanjing. In 1947, the CCP launched a major offensive against the KMT in Manchuria. This offensive was successful, and the CCP was able to gain control of the region. This victory gave the CCP a major strategic advantage, as it allowed them to cut off the KMT supply lines and isolate them in the south. In 1948, the CCP launched a series of offensives against the KMT in the south. These offensives were successful, and the CCP was able to gain control of much of the south. The KMT was forced to retreat to Taiwan, where they established a new government. The CCP's victory in the middle part of the Chinese Civil War was a major turning point in the conflict. The CCP's victory in Manchuria and the south gave them control of most of China, and the KMT were forced to retreat to Taiwan. The war ended in 1949 with the CCP's victory. The KMT were forced to retreat to Taiwan, where it established a government in exile. The CCP, meanwhile, established the People's Republic of China and began to implement its socialist policies. The end of the Chinese Civil War had a profound impact on China and its people. It marked the end of the KMT's rule and the beginning of CCP's rule. It also marked the beginning of a new era in Chinese history, one in which the CCP would become the dominant political force in the country. The CCP was able to consolidate its power and establish a one-party state. This has led to a lack of political freedom and civil liberties in the country. In addition, the CCP has been able to maintain its grip on power through a variety of tactics, such as censorship and the suppression of dissent. Although the CCP's victory marked the beginning of a period of rapid economic growth, as the country began to open up to foreign investment and trade, this period of growth would eventually lead to the emergence of China as a major economic power. The end of the Chinese Civil War also had a major impact on the international community. It marked the end of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, as well as the beginning of a new era of cooperation between the two superpowers. It also marked the beginning of a new era of Chinese foreign policy, one in which the country would become increasingly involved in international affairs. While the war is now over, its effects are still felt in China today. The tension between China and Taiwan has been escalating in recent years, with both sides taking increasingly aggressive stances towards each other. China has long viewed Taiwan as a renegade province and has sought to bring it back under its control. Taiwan, on the other hand, has declared itself an independent nation and has sought to maintain its autonomy. This has led to a number of diplomatic standoffs between the two countries, with both sides refusing to back down. The situation has become even more tense in recent months, with China increasing its military presence in the region and Taiwan responding with increased military exercises of its own. It remains to be seen how this situation will play out, but it is clear that the tension between China and Taiwan is unlikely to dissipate anytime soon.